And our special guest today is Mrs. Gina Rinehart, who's speaking to us from Rio de Janeiro from the Olympic Games. Hello, Mrs. Rinehart.
David, it's lovely to hear you, and greetings from Rio.
You're having a marvellous time there, I trust.
Yes, we've seen some magnificent performances from our athletes. Just to be able to compete at this world level is outstanding in itself. These athletes are trying so hard. Sometimes they can't do everything they wish, but they are really, they're really fantastic. They've put so much work and effort into being amongst the world's best, and as we all should appreciate, as a smallish country, we are punching well above our weight with these young stars.
You're certainly right, Mrs. Rinehart. We're certainly punching above our weight. There's no doubt that if you compare the population with the number of medals received, we stand out so well above the United States and China and Great Britain and Russia and the other countries. Certainly we do remarkably well in all Olympics, and including this one.
You're so right, David, and I do hope people remember that. We should be very proud of the team, and I loved the quote from they call it the baby of the swimming team, a lovely young girl called Tamsin, and who did very well. And she said that being at the Olympics, it's made every lap that she's, I'm sorry, I'm not quoting her exactly, but made every lap she's swum worthwhile, even if she'd done them tenfold.
Mrs. Rinehart, I was intrigued by a comment you made during the course of the last federal election, in which you said that nobody seemed to be talking about the size of government. And yet we have a constitution which provides for a limited number of powers for the federal authorities, other powers for the states or for the people. And yet we have this massive duplication of services, with both of them having departments of education, although Canberra runs no schools. There seems to be a massive amount of duplication and waste and over-regulation. I'm reminded of what Ronald Reagan once said, that the most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you." I'm sure you would agree, Mrs. Rinehart, that there must be something done to get rid of this unnecessary duplication and waste and over-government of the nation.
I certainly hope so, for our country's sake, and if I may say, I think we need to learn a lot from Ronald Reagan. No one man can do everything, but he's certainly had some of the right ideas. You've been good enough to do a Ronald Reagan quote, which I certainly agree with, and I'd like to add one if I may, and that is that he also said that government's view of the economy could be summed up in a few short phrases. Quote, "If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it." Sadly, a reflection on government help. In Australia right now, given our record debt and the difficulties faced in many of our export industries to stay internationally competitive, I believe this matter, the reduction of government, the reduction of approvals, permits, licenses and compliance, deserves far more urgent attention in the interests of our country.
If the debt keeps growing, it'll be passed on to the children to pay, I suppose, and that doesn't seem to be a terribly good idea, does it? Debt for good things like infrastructure, the building of important things the country needs, on the one hand, and just raising money to pay for recurring expenditure by the government.
I think we need to get back to old but real fundamentals, reducing our spending to live within our means and realizing we have to create revenue before we can spend it. We, I believe, need to get back to these fundamentals instead of just, if there's a problem or it's popular, the government must throw money at it. We're in record debt, and I think we need to start being more realistic. Government's primary duty, in my belief, is to provide both external and internal defence for our country and our people. Unfortunately, however, this is too often not on popular agendas. In my view, we need to spend more on government infrastructure for our internal and external defence. I think we also, though, need to be careful in our request to government for infrastructure spending in general. The whole government process of collecting taxpayers' money, then spending it, is not the most efficient way of providing infrastructure. Look at Pink Bat's expenditure and the many horror stories there. Governments are simply not good at effectively spending and managing well that process. Much wastage occurs when governments spend.
You made the point in the piece that you wrote for the newspapers. It stunned me that for the Roy Hill project, even in the pre-construction phase, you had an extraordinary number of approvals and permits and licenses. I could hardly believe that when I read that.
Well, unfortunately, it is true. Before construction commenced, we had more than 4,000 approvals, permits, and licenses to get through, and then the ongoing burden of compliance, let alone, when for construction there were more approvals, permits and licenses required for construction in addition to this more than 4,000 before construction. And David, you're not the only person that is surprised at this number. When I ask politicians how many approvals, permits, licenses do they think a mega project like Roy Hill would have required, they say, or maybe less than 100. I haven't even heard them think it's more than 100. So you're certainly not the only person who is otherwise unaware of just what sort of burden these regulations are being put by government on private industry.
And that, I suppose, is both levels of government.
Yes, it is, David, and I can certainly talk more on this if you wish, because it didn't just happen to our project in West Australia, it also happened to our mega projects in Queensland. And, the issue is that there's no instant book on just which are the approvals, permits, licenses that you have to do. You've got to find them out for yourselves, and we had a quarter of our then staff back in Queensland trying to find out these approvals, and I get over there, exactly which approvals, permits, licenses are required, and I get over there to officiate at the beginning of the opening of our first mining pit there, the first pit to open up the Galilee Basin in Queensland, and I'm told, we need just over 1,000 approvals, permits and licenses, and I think that's pretty high. I get back a few months later to see the progress on the pit, and I ask about the approvals, permits and licenses, and I'm told, actually we've done more searching here, and there's more than 3,000 approvals, permits and licenses that are required. And they're a bit embarrassed to have to report this greater figure. I get back for the grand opening of the mining pit a few months later again, and I ask how are the approvals, permits and licenses going, and you know what I was told? They've now found over 5,000 approvals, permits and licenses that are required for this being in the different state in Queensland for a major project.
And you provide a lot of your own infrastructure for many of your projects, do you not?
Yes, it hasn't been provided by taxpayers' money. It's been provided in our mega project Roy Hill, which is costing us approximately $10 billion, because the mine's only a small part of that. The major part is the infrastructure, the rail and the port in particular. We've had to borrow over $7 billion to be able to do this project. Similarly for Queensland, although the project is not up and running like our Roy Hill one is, it's had a lot of approval issues. But similarly, that's also would be a very significant investment in infrastructure for port and rail in particular.
Do you think people realise what the contribution is of the resources sector to Australia and to the rest of the people in Australia?
I hope they start to realise this, because, just an easy example was before the great iron ore developments in the Pilbara, West Australia was actually a mendicant state, or a state that depended on handouts from the other states. Ever since the iron ore industry was started in the north in the second half of the 60s, we haven't been in that position. So this is very important, because it does things like help provide our roads, our hospitals, our schools, our parks, and much more. It's very important. Some people just look at the direct employment of the mining industry and think, oh, that's low. But more importantly, there's the indirect employment, because there's so many more people that are involved indirectly in the mining industry. And if you wish, David, I could give you a simple example of this in relation to the humble donga that is required throughout the industry. If you'd like me to talk on that, I will.
I'd be very interested to hear about that.
Yes, it's just an easy example to point to show how important it is for related industries. If you look at the donga, whether it's made in Australia or Asia, it still has to be transported to the mining site location. So that involves the truckies and also other transport requirements. If you then look at the you've got it on arriving on site, you need to have labourers involved to prepare for the donga. You need to have electricians and plumbers involved to be able to set up the donga. Concrete needs to be poured to be able to chain the donga into the ground, which is a safety requirement, of course, for the cyclones that come, for instance, in the north and in the far north. Then, that doesn't stop there. You've usually had little companies involved in the soft furnishings and the decor and soft furnishings for all the things that are required in the donga, be it chairs, be it cushions, be it curtains, and so on. All this needs to be supplied. Then you need the suppliers for the other things, such as all the bathroom requirements, the towels, the mats, the flannels, and more, the detergents and what have you. Then of course you need all the various things that are placed in the donga, be it the chairs, be it the bed linen, and all this sort of thing. So there's so many. These aren't people directly employed by the mining industry, but these are people that might have small businesses that make all these, that provide all this. Then of course there's the ongoing maintenance of the donga. Then of course there's another business for the ongoing cleaning of the donga. So it's just a simple way to explain that, okay, this mightn't be part of the 200-something thousand employed directly in the mining industry, but if you look at all the people that get business and small companies, let alone all the lawyers and the tax advisors and the accountants, because a lot of their work is to do with the mining and related industries, which people also tend to forget.
Yes, that's so true. There's an enormous multiplier effect. As you know, we're always hearing about Australia being the food bowl of the world or of Asia and so on. I noticed that you've moved into agriculture and you've acquired some prominent agricultural properties.
Yes, David, I think Australia does very well, the primary resources sector. I think that the world's population is growing, and not only that, I think our neighbours are wanting to have better quality produce. But the fundamental here, once again, is we've got to keep our costs down in Australia so that we can export internationally, because we still have to compete against all the other countries that can do primary industries just like Australia can do primary industries. So I think it's critical we bear in mind that we must keep our costs down, and unfortunately this slab comes back again of the government fat that we really do need to be a bit more serious about reducing.
There seems to be an enormous resistance to that, doesn't there? That a feeling as though the rest of the world owes us a living, and it's not like that, is it? Other people buy on the basis of quality and price.
Price is, of course, terribly important. Hopefully Australia can help on the quality thing, but they're not going to be buying from us just because they like Australians or they like our quality. We've still also got to be serious about keeping our costs down so that we can compete and supply internationally.
And you mentioned the North. You're very much, in many ways, the voice of the North. You've been a very strong proponent of development of the North in many respects. How's that going?
Well, I think a couple of elections ago we were very pleased that three major parties were keen to support our vision at ANDEV for the North. I think more needs to happen though in relation to a special economic zone. This is not some unusual GINA concept. More than 4,000 special economic zones are working successfully in the world today, and with some of the ingredients you need for a special economic zone to work successfully are the less government regulations, approvals, permits, licenses and compliance, and less government charges, be they for licenses or things like payroll tax, stamp tax, etc. All of which, at least many of which I should add, were meant to have been removed by the GST, and there they are, they're still there causing problems. But yes, you do need to cut down the burden of government for a special economic zone to be effective. And I think in our north, where the temperatures are high, where you're away from cities and things, you do need to create advantages to try and get people to live there, to try and get people to want to invest their money up there. So I think that the concepts and, if you like, the vision of ANDEV is still very important. It hasn't, of course, been put yet into effect as much as I'd like to see that occur. But I guess all you keep doing is keep trying, don't you?
I do think people do respond to incentives. I remember years ago when Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen abolished death duties in Queensland, and vast numbers of people then started moving into Queensland to take advantage of that because they seemed to want to leave their property to their children rather than to the government.
You know, David, isn't that an excellent example? And I totally agree with what you said. A lot of people moved to Queensland. A lot of investment was put into Queensland. Queensland benefited, and Sir Joh was one of the few premiers these days. He was, as you know, the longest serving premier in Queensland, but he left money in kitty when he left. And how many premiers in state governments, let alone federal governments, can have a record like that?
Yes, there's supposed to be competition between the states, and if you have a special economic zone, competition between that and the rest of the country, so you give people incentives to move around.
Yes, and I feel that if a special economic zone worked, as I do believe it would in the north, hopefully would then extend it further south. because this could have benefit for not just the north should it be implemented there, but it could certainly have benefits for a wider, even wider part of Australia.
Mrs. Reinhardt, you've been very generous with your time, and I do appreciate it. I know you're doing wonderful work over there. You keep very quiet about it, but we heard about it from Alan Jones this morning about the remarkable things that you're doing for Australian sports people, and I know you do other things for other groups of Australians, so I do hope you do enjoy some of your time in Brazil, and that you have a very good time there, and that the Australian athletes thank you for what you've done. I'm sure they will.
I think that it's such a privilege to work with the Australian athletes at this level. Their dedication, their hard work, their discipline, their focus is something that I hope more Australians can appreciate and hopefully emulate. Hopefully, these are not only currently role models for the Olympics, but I hope it extends well beyond the Olympics. They're great ambassadors, young ambassadors for our country, and who knows, they could be some of our future leaders for our country. If you like, I could leave you with a few Thatcher quotes and Reagan quotes. I think it's great you've started with a Reagan quote, and I've selected a few more because sadly they're not with us any longer, but as we all know, but we should still learn from great people like this and how much they contributed to and helped their own countries. Similarly, there's a lot that we can learn from Lee Kuan Yew, and similarly, there's a leader in the world we should learn a lot from who's still with us, Prime Minister Modi, who's moving mountains of government tape over in India with fabulous effect. We just need more leaders like this. It'd be wonderful if we had leaders like this in Australia. So should I start with my Thatcher quotes, because I will have to leave in a few moments.
Please do.
Thank you. Well, she said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. She also said, if you set out to be liked, you would be prepared to compromise on anything at any time, and you would achieve nothing. Importantly too, she said, there can be no liberty unless there is economic liberty. Standing in the middle of the road is very dangerous. You get knocked down by the traffic from both sides. David, I don't think you're guilty of that one. Every family should have the right to spend their money after tax as they wish, and not as the government dictates. Let us extend choice, extend the will to choose, and the chance to choose. Very clever lady, did so much for her country. If I could move on now to another great world leader, ex-President Ronald Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from its extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Government's first duty is to protect the people, not ruin their lives. We should measure welfare's success by how many people leave welfare, not by how many are added. The problem is not that people are taxed too little. The problem is that government spends too much. Welfare's purpose should be to eliminate, as far as possible, the need for its own existence. Government always finds a need for whatever money it gets. And if I could finish on, no government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. Government programs, once launched, never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll see on this earth. David, it's been, as always, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Reinhardt. You are so kind. This is David Flint for Safe Wales TV, and this is Conversations with Conservatives, and our special guest was Mrs. Gina Reinhardt, and we thank you so much for your involvement in the program.
Hello everyone, I'm Paul Higgins, and welcome to Safe Worlds TV, the global marketplace, the world leader in internet TV and semantic search, the home of free enterprise, the level playing field that all the world can use for electronic business. With Safe Worlds TV, every business in every country of the world can now be involved in the world economy. There are no barriers to entry. Even the poorest countries and the smallest businesses can be involved. The system is simple. Every country divides into 12 headline channels. Every channel is a gateway to an unlimited number of related community channels. Every community is a social network and a marketplace to sell products and services. There is no limit to the number of businesses that can be connected into a marketplace. There is no limit to the number of products you can sell. All our channels and marketplaces are designed to keep you entertained and to help you do internet business at a cost that everyone can afford. The amazing semantic technology that underpins Safe Worlds TV allows us to deliver this amazing system to the world. It allows us to accommodate millions of TV channels and marketplaces and to link them together into the global marketplace. The vast global marketplace that we are building is the final piece of the electronic global village. This is the ultimate achievement of the internet. What you see here now is only the tip of the iceberg of semantic services that are coming. Come now and see what we've already got. Choose any country of the world, then select the headline channel that you want to explore. Just point and click and follow the logical tree structure. We think you'll be amazed at what we already have in Safe Worlds TV. When you're ready, click on the button at the bottom of the screen and register to become a user. You can start immediately to create your very own internet TV channel. Enjoy the experience. I'm Paul Higgins for Safe Worlds TV.